Hello, hello?
Hey, can you hear me?
I can hear you, dude. And,
Awesome.
so can the stream. Hell yeah. Everything is working. How you doing, man?
Good, good. How about you?
I'm doing pretty good. Today's, a little unexpected. Things that are arising, but other than that, we're good. We're here now, thank God. And yeah, like, you can let me know if you want. By all means, we can make this like a 90-minute lesson or something. Just, give you more bang for that lesson here. Get it going real good. Um, just that, it's my way of saying like thank you for being patient because you've definitely been pretty patient.
Yeah, no problem at all. I appreciate that. It's very generous. So, yeah, I mean, I would say let's just kind of go through and then, depending on how it goes, like,
Sure,
we can kind of go from.
that sounds good. So give me so first of all, if you're not already on, log into BattleNet on North America. We'll get a party started, and I'll give you my details so we can get it going. And then just let me
Sure.
know as well what your current like MMR is more or less like where you're at in the game and what you're kind of wanting to focus on. Just like a rough summary, and then we'll jump into a replay.
Yeah, sure. So, MMR, I probably fluctuate between 4,400 and 47 to 4,800.
Okay.
So probably like the last year, to give you an idea, I got into Masters finally, and last season I got as high as Masters 2, but now I'm like border Masters 3, Diamond 1. So yeah, it's a fairly big range, I would think. But in terms of struggling, like it was usually Zerg, but now I feel like I just can't beat Terran, and I don't know, like I feel like if I like, am I just picking bad fights? Am I just not macroing? Like, I don't really know. So that's kind of where I need the help.
Sure. That sounds easy enough. So yours is definitely going to be about like really like the lesson we're going to do is going to really be about like fine tuning a build that's going to help you just kind of like operate because like it's going to be very minorly focused on like macro and stuff like that. I would because it's usually if someone's like I'm silver or something like that, I'm like all right, we're talking about macro mostly today. uh,
Yeah, yeah.
but yeah, we'll definitely look at some things that can help you out, and I'll tell you some stuff that I really like that I feel like it's counter meta that is really good in my opinion. If I need the group, I'll make you the leader. You can open up you open up the replay with watch with others, and then before you start it, just make me the lobby host, and we'll be good.
Sure.
So one thing I'll ask is what tech structure in ZVT do you generally like to open with? Are you a council Protoss?
Um, yeah, I was until honestly I went through your bronze to GM, and lately I've just kind of been favoring Stargate with Void Rays, and then I go into Robo with Disruptors because usually Zergs will go just Mass Hydra. So I feel like for me that works fairly well.
So you go Stargate openers against Zerg. Uh,
Hmm.
what do you do? Do you do the same thing against Terran?
Terran, I go Robo first because
Okay.
I feel like every Terran just goes like Marauder all
Yes.
in
Yep.
or
Yep.
like like a Mind Drop.
Yeah, it's literally those are the exact two things that I see all the time too. And then the third one would be a tank timing, like just like a tank bunker push. It's
Yeah.
always one of those things. Uh, so anyways, yeah, we'll look at your build. We'll see what's going on.
Cool. So this game was kind of, I think I might know what I did wrong, but this one was a weird one. So I got a couple guys from my company to hop into this like tournament, and I played this guy. This was a week ago. I played him on Purity and Industry, and to be honest, like I kind of bopped him. I just went like Stalker, Charge Slot, and Disruptors, and the game was over pretty quick. So then this was our ace match. So I felt pretty good, and I tried to transition into Sky Toss, and I just felt like every fight I was, losing like my whole army, and he wasn't losing anything.
Yeah.
So Yeah, this one was a weird one for me.
Okay. So, you know, we'll definitely see what like if you can go into like Sky Toss, I guess, against Terran, like, or against anybody really, any race. If you can manage to pull it off, it's always going to be super good. But it's definitely one of those things where it's a bit trickier to be able to pull off, only because it's just so bad unless you have a lot of it, and then it becomes from bad to like amazing.
Hmm.
So yeah, like so far, just seeing your opener. I'm gonna look at it one more time. I feel like I want to see. I feel like I might have missed something here. Okay. So, just to make things run smoother for yourself, this will help you a lot. Like, this is very minor, but it's something you should be doing all the time. In every matchup, if you're gonna go for gate nexus core, cut probes at 20. I don't tell people to do this in BDGM, but you should do this if you're gonna be doing like legit builds now. Like once you get to the higher end of tier of skill. So what you do is you keep making probes. You chrono once, all the way up to 20 probes, and then you stop making probes at 20. And the reason why is because you're making probe 21 right now. So you are actually at 20 supply, but you have 21 because of that probe in the Nexus right now. And the reason why this is important is because if you make this probe right now at 21 supply, instead of making your cyber core, you're delaying your cyber core a little longer. And what you want to do is, like, your money is stretched really thin right now when you're at 20 supply, right when you can throw down this Nexus, because that's right at the same time your gateway is going to finish. Getting that core out as quick as you can is important because you can chrono boost a stalker out faster to then zone out like the Reaper so that no probes die. Because even if your stalker's only delayed by like, let's say 6 seconds because you're making probes, or even if you don't prioritize it and let's say it's delayed by 12 seconds because you're like, oh wait, okay, oops, I'm at 210 minerals and now I want to go take my cyber core while still cranking probes out. It's just gonna,
Gotcha.
yeah, like you're gonna lose more than what you're gonna gain most of the time versus a good player. So yeah, always cut probes at 20 versus Zerg and versus Terran to go 20 in Nexus and Core at the same time, and then resume probe production. And then you'll be making a second gas and a pylon as soon as you can afford it right after.
Cool.
So your second gas is also really late. Like your cyber core is super late. Like, cause look at this. Your cyber core or your gateway finishes at 127, and I know you're still making probes, which is fine. But you're 127 to 143 is your cyber core, so that'll definitely get that shit going down a little bit faster. And then the second you have any money, like your first expense is always going to be a probe right after the cyber core. But then the second you have any money again is going to be, so you went pylon first, it should be gas first and then pylon, because you're going to have an oversaturated mineral line at this point too, so you want to get that second gas going quickly, because the second your cyber core is done, you should also be able to make stalker and warp gate simultaneously at the same time. Or I said that's redundant what I just said, but yeah, you know what I mean.
No, I got it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, now going from there, so that's just like the opener you're gonna want to always aim for. But going from there, I'm gonna look at your probe now and look at and see what you see. Exactly, to like see how to read it. Well, do you ever, when you scout someone, do you ever look at the gas of the actual like amount of gas they have?
I do now. Honestly, after watching your series, I don't know if I did this game.
Sure.
Because I felt pretty good about. Again, like I just play this guy, so I was like, oh, I can win this, but
Yeah.
I was probably a little sloppy.
All right. So we saw that his barracks. So this is like an easy way to read it. Obviously, this is gonna already like answer all of your questions for what could be happening from the Terran. If this guy had mined like 100 gas already, and the way you pace it is always how far along is the barracks and how much gas has he mined as the barracks is gonna finish. If he has mined 50 gas by the time the barracks is done, you know he's going for a Reaper opener, and there's no shenanigans going on. It's standard. You don't have to worry about anything unless he makes a Marine first, and then maybe you're gonna be like, okay, maybe he wants to make a really fast factory, but it's like not super emphasized on the factory because he didn't make the gas earlier. There's other questions that could arise if it wasn't a Reaper, but 99 times out of 100, if the guy's mined 50 gas by the time the barracks is going to be done, so it like matches up right there, 50 gas, barracks done, it means he built the barracks and the gas at the same time, which is exactly what you need for a Reaper. So this takes away a lot of your questions as to like what, for scouting purposes, as to being like there could be something proxied, there could be something going on weird. What you should be seeing now is you should be expecting a natural. That's all you should be feeling like now, because nothing weird should be going on. So as long as you see that natural, then you confirm that there is nothing weird going on. And obviously,
Okay.
And he, does that make sense? Like it,
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, totally.
Okay. Yeah, your second gas is really late. Like looking at your build again, it's way too late. Your second gas should be going down around like 21 supply. Like it'll be like if the first probe gets built, then you make it immediately. And this game you did go council first. So I'm going to pause it again for a second and talk about this really fast. As we said earlier, a lot of Terrans in the meta right now are all about Widowmine drops, or which council, I think council is fine against Widowmine drops. But the one thing that I feel like you might struggle a bit more against, unless you do something specific, is going to be tank timings or just bio pushes with Marine Marauder. Because with a council build, what you're going to need to do now is you're going to definitely need to really emphasize your chronode probes to maximize your minerals as fast as you can. One chrono on the gateway is still okay for the stalker just to zone out the Reaper, but you really need to maximize your minerals because you're going to be using mostly zealots here to defend this. Like you'll probably make like 6 stalkers and just go zealot. So staying on like 2 gases for a while is, I would say, good if you're going to go council opener.
Okay.
I'll see how you build your natural. You are chronoing your probes. So far, other than your delayed core and your delayed second gas, so far going council, everything else you're doing is fine. And then I would recommend getting a sentry always second. See if you do it. Do you normally do that? Okay, you are. Good.
Yeah, and so again, this was kind of a weird one where I just played this guy, and I might even go blink with this one. And usually that's like if I'm playing a friend who I know I'm better than, I'll go blink because I feel more confident in that.
Okay.
And if we get to a second replay, you'll kind of see, I think, a little bit more refined, I would hope.
Sure.
Yeah, we'll see, because this guy will... I mean, should I spoil anything, or does that not matter?
If you want to, it's okay. Because I'm also basing the game off of your vision a lot, so even if I know what's going on, I'll still look at what you see, and you can create a reaction from that.
Cool.
So you can tell me whatever you want. It's totally fine.
Gotcha. So yeah, this guy is he's going to push and siege my natural and kill it, but I'll have a third base. And yeah, I didn't think I could break him, but I mean, maybe I could. I guess we'll kind of see.
Sure. So I'll say this. I think with the council build, there's 2 things that I would change. I don't honestly mind that you're getting blink first. You can totally go blink and then charge. That's fine. The robo's fine because you do need an observer. Because if the main reason why is because if this guy actually goes banshees and you don't get an observer, you're just fucked. Like that's the one build that'll kill you. So it's required to go for a robo facility, and it also helps deal with widow mines because then you don't have to actually sacrifice a probe or something like that. But what I want to change in your build, if you do go council, is when you make the robo, I want you to pair that with a second gateway. So you'll have a little bit faster production, and it's totally fine if you're making zealots. If you're like, I don't have enough gas because I just made an observer or blink, but I still have availability on my gateway, you can totally make a zealot because you're going to be making a lot anyways soon. Because you're honestly going to stop around 8 stalkers with this build. 6 stalkers or 8 stalkers, and you'll probably stop because it's like 10 max. Like you could go up to 10, but that's no more than 10. And the only reason why you want to do this is because you want enough stalkers to blink around and pop medevacs and also pop liberators, and just pop his air units basically. And they can support your ground army, but you're never gonna lose your stalkers. That's the point. Is you're gonna always lose your zealots, and the stalkers are just pepper on DPS to kill important shit for Terran, like a tank, a medevac, whatever. Not bio essentially, unless all there is bio. So instead, what I want to see from your build is I want to see no gas at your natural, and I want to see a faster third base. So like,
Gotcha.
so like when your natural is like maybe like 12 probes on it, or like 13, 14, 12 to 14 probes basically, when it's almost fully saturated, start a third then, and then let your natural oversaturate a bit while the third is finishing, and once the third gets close to finishing, you're probably going to be able to transfer like 8 probes to your third, because your natural is going to most likely be around 24 out of 16, and you'll re-rally to your third, you'll transfer to your third, and right when you start transferring to your third, you're going to explode with more gateways. And then
Okay.
so you're going to throw down maybe like another like 4 gates, and you're going to have like 6 gateway production with observer. And then that's also, you can take your forges then too to like start really chronoing upgrades, and you can just slam out zealot, 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 like all day there, because you're gonna have so much minerals to work with. Because the only way council builds beat Terran is if you overwhelm them, and the only way you overwhelm them is by doing something greedy with your minerals, because you're gonna focusing on your gas like this at your natural. You're gonna always have a massive gas bank, unless you're going mass stalkers, and mass stalkers actually sucks in the meta against Terran. If it's literally mass stalkers, because marauders are fucking gods against stalkers. Like step-back marauders
I'm learning the hard way.
yeah. Like this builder here is actually counter build for you. You should actually get screwed here. The fact that you don't die is something goes wrong here for Terran. And I guess we'll see in a second, but the fact that you've prioritized so much gas. But then again, also, here's the thing, okay? I take it back. You've actually also made a Robo Bay. So your build is actually, the fact that you went to a Robo Bay, it should have just been Robo first. And we'll talk about that as well in a minute. We'll go back and talk about that in a sec, but yeah,
Okay.
your build, I would say, is now inefficient because you're actually prioritizing the Robo style. And it's going to be nice that you have Blink for this, and it's going to be nice that you're going to have Charge coming up soon for this. But you should not actually, versus a Terran who does like a really efficient build, you should never have enough to stop it though, the way you're playing right now. Like you should always fall short, I would say, for the council style. I do agree though that you're making disruptors. I was going to talk about that in a second. I'm really glad you're making disruptors. I want to ask you a question really quick. Do you know why you're making disruptors, or are you just making them is that what you always do?
Yeah, so I used to be only Colossi really, but I feel like they just don't do anything against Marauders.
Yeah.
So, and against this guy in particular, I felt like his splits weren't great. So that, was kind of the reason for that.
Okay. So I agree with what you just said to a point. I think disruptors are good against like Colossus kind of suck against Marauder. I agree with you on that 100%. But I do think you should still make Colossus, like 1 or 2 of them, if the Terran player is going for Marauder and like something else to support it that is not a siege tank, like a Widowmine instead, or a Medevac, stuff like that. Because Colossus is consistent DPS, and if you have gateway units in front of it, and you micro the Colossus, you can actually bleed the Terran out really hard if they chase it, and you actually counter micro it really, like, quickly. You don't wait to react. You do it right away. Mm-hmm. And it's just safer because you have, again, it's consistent DPS, so it's always there. However, if you scout a Terran that has a tech labbed factory, like you see here, and you're like, oh, look at this guy, he's going Marauder Marine tank, then yeah, I would say do not make Colossus. Making Disruptors is the correct move then, because I think that having a couple Colossus, like I said before, is good against a bio opener. But if it has tank as well, a tank push, you're going to get fucking destroyed if you're trying to consistently DPS over time his bio while he's just shooting your Colossus with his tanks as well. Like, you're going to take way more damage than he is. So Disruptor is definitely a better choice here because of that reason, because the tanks are here.
Cool.
Also, I agree with your shield battery choice too here. So, and also I like that you're chronoing out your Robo Bay. And the thing about it is, with the guy hitting you at this late in the game at around 6 minutes, 6:20, you could right now have your tech structures would be a little bit reversed. This charge upgrade would be like, for instance, let's just say your first upgrade was going to be Blink either way. It would be like Blink would be in the Twilight Council right now, and Blink would be nearing completion, like maybe like halfway, 2/3 of the way, you know, almost done. It would be somewhere in that range, depending on how much, if you chrono boosted it at all or not. And you would not have the other upgrade, but you would have a Robo that would have been done earlier, and this Disruptor in production right now would actually be like your third Disruptor, and you would already have like 2 Disruptors out. That would be the difference if you went Robo first here.
Gotcha.
And right now, if you had 2 Disruptors instead of 1, I would say that would be way better for your defense in terms of how, like, you know, being able to hold this. So if your plan is to go, you know, Robo Disruptor style, that's why that would be a big deal. That's why that would be good. And then your gateway count, I like it. It's fine. I do think maybe a little bit more efficiency on, like, you know, maybe making it a tad bit faster if you have the money for it a little bit earlier, and maybe upkeeping your probe production even during this attack would be fine too. Like, would be able, because you, like, all I'm saying is, like, you could definitely spend your money a little bit better than it is right now. It's actually not that bad though. Like, a lot of people might look at this and go, 1,000 minerals, oh my god! But you're gonna be dumping resources like crazy if you're chrono boosting out disruptors, and now you're pumping 5 gateway units at a time. So you can definitely spend like a good 800 minerals in one go if you make 5 stalkers and a disruptor. But yeah, see, like, that's what this is also what I'm talking about consistent DPS. Okay, so I want to tell you something right now. If you had a Colossus right here, right when he shows up, if you have a Colossus and he chases your Colossus and you pop Guardian Shield, or you force field some of his units or something like that, or you just get in his way with some gateway units, and you're pulling the Colossus back towards your batteries, and you're periodically like laser beaming his ass with A moving backwards, you're definitely gonna kill a lot of his bio, and you're probably gonna keep the Colossus alive for a while. If not, if you micro it really well, you might even just win the fight outright. He might chase it until he dies, or if he doesn't chase it, you just keep killing tons of bio as it sits back there, because you're gonna be swiping Marines in like every 2 hits. And you'll do a little bit of damage to the Marauder, but you'll kill them over time. He definitely does want to get rid of the Colossus, because the Colossus does, even though Colossus isn't great against Marauder, it still does fuck them up a bit if it doesn't get focused. So it would be safe, but if you look at your micro right here, your fight, this is so risky for a defense for you, because if you miss this shot for a Disruptor, the game's over. Like, it's so scary. Like, if this guy just split right now left right or something like that, or he just, let's say he just micros really well, and you whiff and you kill like 1 Marine or something like that, and you're like, oh shit, like, you're dead right now. You would just be dead. But you killed 8 units with that Disruptor, which is huge, right? Like, you actually just broke his army really hard there. And even though the push is still scary, yeah, at this point, even though 8 units just died to the Disruptor shot, you're probably going to be fine, though, because you've killed enough. And that's why, even if you, but again, so I don't want to be confusing here. Disruptor first is still correct against tank, but if this bio had a medevac supporting it instead of a tank supporting it, and this bio was not about to die because it was being healed by medevac over and over and over every time you stimpacked, having Colossus would be better, because you could actually, you know, you getting rid of the Marines basically a lot faster, a lot more efficiently. Like, it not like faster and efficiently, but consistently. They would always be dying. They wouldn't have a chance to dodge, and then you just get fucked. Yeah, long story short, going Disruptor first against mass bio, if it's really just consistent mass bio, which is medevac bio, it's a gamble, is all it is. But yeah, I don't want to focus too much on that, because you are doing, like, I've already told you the incorrect things about the Council and the Disruptors, but the fact that you're going Disruptors is correct against tanks, so I'll kind of move on from that point now. Just want to make sure you
Okay.
understand that point because it's really important.
Yeah, no, totally.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've personally lost so many games because I've tried to do it and I'm like, okay, well, it does not work because it's literally a fucking gamble. All right, so now at this point, I would say one of the biggest things you can do to help yourself. I would actually recommend not getting these Stargates right now. I would actually recommend one of two things for you instead, which would be either focus your focus your chrono boosts on your gateways as well as your disruptors. Like just get more units out faster, or make more gateways. Even honestly, forges at this point would be better, I would say, than double Stargate. I think double Stargate is ambitious. I think forges would also be kind of considered ambitious, where it's like, okay, maybe not right now, because there's something more important going on. I think just more gates would be your best bet, and we're talking like once your third base gets well saturated, which it's kind of getting there right now, you want to be on like 8 gates with this kind of a style.
Yeah, looking at this now, I think I was thinking back to from what I'd seen in one of your series where you had like raced a Tempest
Yeah.
when you were getting siege, but then again, like his tanks were not right next to your natural.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I think that was my thinking behind it.
Sure.
But yeah, in hindsight, like I probably should have just made a whole bunch of charge lots and kind of overwhelmed this, right?
Yeah, exactly. Because you actually had an opportunity as well when you warped in 4 zealots next to your pylon at the natural. You could have actually jumped on like his tanks, and I guarantee you could have killed at least 2 out of the 3, maybe 3 out of 3, because you just hit a disruptor shot right next to a tank. You didn't quite hit the tank, but all of his bio died, and the only new bio he has right now is literally units that were walking across the map. So a tank is basically so vulnerable. A siege tank is always going to be very, very vulnerable if there's not enough siege tank DPS there to kill the zealots before they touch the tanks. And you're going to lose, as a Terran player, you're going to lose like either all of your tanks or a lot of them if zealots jump on them. And now suddenly you're like, well, I don't have bio to kill the zealots off the tanks. So now it's just tanks killing zealots off the tanks, which means not only are the zealots killing the tanks, but the tanks are shooting themselves too with splash. And the tanks just fucking delete themselves basically if zealots get on them. Like 4 zealots with versus 3 tanks, seriously, I think 2 tanks would die there, guaranteed. Maybe 3 out of 3, depending on how the RNG kind of goes. Like, are the zealots getting splashed really hard, or are the tanks kind of like owning themselves with like a zealot getting shot kind of isolated in a way, stuff like that. But yeah, like just getting rid of the tanks is definitely what your goal should have been with just charge lots, for sure.
Okay.
And the Tempest reaction is mostly if your opponent is either like one base all inning you, and you're like, holy fuck, okay, this guy's like really, really all in on tanks, and I will never have charge in time. I'm never gonna have like the upgrades that I need in time, and instead I'll just go ahead and like stalemate it out and go to Tempest. That's kind of the logic there for that. When you're gonna play defensive against it like that, either that or he's going full-fledged mech, and instead of having bio there, he's gonna have like Hellbats there or something like that. Because then the Hellbats are just like, hi zealots, bye zealots. So then Tempest would be a decent call again there because it's just mech.
Gotcha. That makes sense.
Yeah, that's what you just did with Disruptor 2 is great. That's exactly what you should be doing, and that's also another reason if we talk about what you like. You just hit 2 tanks with a Disruptor shot, and you had 1 Disruptor shot when you first showed up at your base. And now if you had 2 Disruptors when you first showed up at your base, like there's a potential where you could maybe kill some bio and tanks simultaneously. That's why it's so good too. But yeah, anyways, you do run it over with zealots. That's exactly what you should have done in the first place. I honestly think this Void Ray reaction is not good.
Yeah, I saw a lot of Marauders, and I thought, oh, okay, well, you know, this might kind of catch him off guard. Like, he doesn't really have that many Marine.
Yeah. I think there's going to come a day for you at some point in time. This happens to every Protoss, by the way, where you're going to say, you know what? A Void Ray is actually just kind of a bad unit. it's so fucking bad. Like, every Protoss eventually gets to this point where you just realize that Void Rays kind of suck, and like there's only one exception to making Void Rays, and it's if you're being severely all in, and just because of how you opened, it was Stargate first, and you're like, okay, I'll never have enough energy on an Oracle to really stop this. I'm never going to be able to have enough time to build up enough Phoenix to stop this, and because I already have a Stargate, I just have to make a Void Ray. Like, let's say it's a Zerg who's just fucking doing a Roach all in, and you're like, I don't have enough time for anything else. I need Void because I opened Stargate. That's the only time it's good. That's seriously the only time it's good. Other than that, it would have to be like a very specific all in, like you're proxying shield batteries or some shit with voids. But in a mid game macro scenario like this, if you're investing into voids, you're just gonna feel like they suck ass. Later, like as you get better and better and better, you're gonna be like, voids suck worse and worse and worse because they're just actually not very versatile units. They have to like commit so hard to sacrificing themselves to actually do the damage, and when your opponent knows how to fight against Void Rays, it's very easy for them to shut down Void Rays. Like for instance, if I'm a Zerg player and I see you have Void Rays, and I'm just like, all right, I'll just make like 5 more queens, which will give me more creep spread and Void Ray protection. And you show up with like 6 voids and I have like 8 queens, and you're like, wow, Void Rays can't do anything now. I have to just run away. Like it's a fucking bad.
Yeah,
unit.
I hate queens.
Yeah, Void Rays are just. I would say get out of the habit of making them if you make them a lot. Definitely not good.
Okay.
We can definitely talk more about them too, like throughout this game, seeing how you use them. But they're just easy to shut down. Essentially, is the reason why they're like. Look at that, like a turret, and you're like, I'm out.
All the shield.
Yeah, I'm like, I'll peace. Oh, 3 Marines. Fuck that.
Oh, see ya.
It's not what you're doing either. It's just the unit itself. It's exactly what's happening here is what is always going to happen. If your opponent actually counters the Void Ray with, like, he has the idea of going, okay, I'm going to shut it down with this. The Void Ray always has to sacrifice its hit points to do something. The only time a Void Ray is actually going to get something done is if your opponent's like, oh, I had no idea you were going Void Rays, and I'm not prepared for this. A Void Ray is like, literally, here's a good way to describe it. A Void Ray is like a Dark Templar that doesn't have cloak, or something like that. Like it's, like imagine like DTs. It's you're a Protoss, so you know that DTs are like amazing if your opponent's not prepared for it. But if they are prepared for it, DTs suck ass. And you're like, oh well, they didn't do anything. A Void Ray is kind of the same thing, where if they're not prepared for it, it's really good. But when you're at this level of skill, everyone's gonna know, oh, he's going Void Rays. Okay, it's like very low chances you're gonna be able to hide that. And you're like, surprise, 5 Void Rays. Or, you know, everyone's going to just usually catch wind of it at some point before it happens. So if they know that you're going Voids and they just counter it, you're just going to be like, well, yeah, we're just going to do nothing now with Voids. And they're just going to sit here. And they're so expensive. Anyways. So what you're doing too with the Sky Toss transition, this is very early. He does.
Just kind of realizing that now.
Yeah, he does have a planetary at his 3rd, so his build is also inefficient. But this if you start making like Tempest or something like that, it's the only way you're really gonna have a. So it's what's happening right now in this game is it's putting you into a situation again where you're putting so much emphasis on your disruptors, like you cannot miss a shot, because if you do miss a shot, you're gonna die. You're so far behind that you need to hit your fat disruptor shots. You need to be able to like wipe out like 30 supply, 40 supply to even have a chance here. So we're talking like you're needing to kill like 30 units or like 20 units with these disruptors between Marauder and Marine or something. So it's because you're having too much costs into tech, and now you're also going Tempest. So yeah, and Tempest they're sorry, I'm like having a cough. Tempest are really good if your opponent is like, so you're hitting the shots too, which thank God, right?
Yeah.
Like if you didn't hit those, if he split, you'd be dead here. It's the same exact thing that happened early on. Like your build's not as it's a little out of order, and it's just like it's like basically you're giving yourself like 1 bullet in your chamber when you could have had like 6 or something. Like, I don't know. I can't really. Bad analogy. It's not a good one. It's a gamble again. It's the shot.
It's like I'm going to. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
You go, you go. I'm kind of stuttering my ass off over here.
No, you're good. I was gonna say it's kind of like, and I feel like I had this issue a bunch where I tried to tech too quickly without actually just having any army, and
Yeah,
I lose so many games when someone just shows up with a bunch of like roaches or marine marauder or whatever it might be. I'm like, oh, I have one colossi and three stalkers because I was like trying to rush too quick.
yeah,
Like, does
exactly.
that make sense?
Yeah, no, it does. 100% it does, because that's exactly what's happening right now. Like, you you're giving yourself, like, the supply numbers you have are severely in favor of your opponent because you're teching too hard and you're doing things that are slowing down your raw production. And because of that, it's now putting a heavy emphasis on your AoE having to carry the fight because you just don't have enough raw units there. So if you don't have the sickest fucking AoE shots of your life, you're gonna die. But you're hitting them, like the guy's letting you hit them. So the fact that, because like right now, the Tempest are doing nothing, like they're not actually active in the fight yet. But all the costs are there, but the effectiveness is not there. So, and you're taking a fight at the same time. So your army is just smaller than it should be by like 1,000 resources, and that could be like another like 10 zealots, or it could be like another 8 stalkers, or something. Like, your supply could definitely be a lot higher than it is, and just your raw army here. So it's slowing down your production of the buildup of getting to the point to where you're eventually going to get. And yeah, like I said, like if disruptor shots were dodged or split against really well, he would just stim. You would use up your disruptor shots. They would go on cooldown. He would split well against it, and then he would stim forward and run you over. That's what would happen if you didn't hit 2-6 shots, because you have 3 disruptors. The first shot was amazing. You hit like 8 units again, and the second shot whiffed a bit. It just exploded, but the third shot right now is about to blow up another chunk of like another 5 units or 6 units. So you did just wipe out a ton of his army with these disruptors. So that saved your ass right there, really hard. But look at that. Even though you just hit a few good shots there, you still lost that fight over. Like in terms of like you got overpowered and you have to retreat. So it's definitely a. I'm glad that you are retreating, because you only lost zealots really for the most part. So that's actually fine what just happened for you. But it's still really scary. Like that was a potential throw right there. I'll just say this: the time that you should be switching into Tempest, there should be two reasons why this happens, and it could be one of the 2 reasons that makes it happen. It doesn't have to be both. One reason why you go Tempest is because you are high supply. We're talking like you're basically maxed out, like you're 180 plus. And you could start preparing for Tempest if your opponent starts going into Liberator. They're like the Liberator kind of Terran. They just like to go libs. And that's just how they play. Number 2 would be, again, you're a high supply, and your opponent is now kind of turtling on like PFs. And that's, so like the fact that he's going for a PF on his 3rd already is, like I said, that's why I kind of mentioned it earlier. That is nice for you, because it's now going to reduce his buildup of getting high supply faster, because now he's got one less mule all game to work with, which is huge. That's a massive part of his economy. But yeah, like that's going to definitely help you a little bit. But I would say focusing on getting higher supply first, and then that would be your trigger going, oh, he's a planetary Terran. Okay, so I know I'm going Tempest now because he's doing PF turtle shit, he's gonna prepare for that. Almost every Terran will at some point, but sometimes you don't even need to make Tempest if you're the one who just maxes quickly and you just run him over with zealots all day, and you're like, well, he doesn't really have the opportunity here to turtle because I just keep running him over. So then it's like I don't even need to go Tempest because he's just dead. I just have such leads basically as Protoss. But yeah, PF turtles and Liberator style Terrans are definitely Tempest transitions for you, and this is assuming he's going bio.
Okay.
We're talking about bio. Now, if we were talking about mech, okay, if your opponent was actually playing a mech style, I would say your speed of which you got your Tempest would be okay. So, and the reason why that is because if this guy was going mech and he was going for a planetary, and you opened up with a robo and you know, a council, and you went for charge lot stalker and disruptor, what unit do you think he would have a lot of? If you had to guess, and he was going back, what unit do you feel like he would probably have a lot of if that was happening?
Probably, I don't know why, Hellbats and tanks,
Yeah,
I'd guess.
yeah, I would agree with you exactly. I would say if the Terran player saw you were going for a lot of gateway and robo, like a heavy gateway emphasis because that's what a council is, and then a robo, and he was going mech, he's probably going to make a lot of tanks. And Hellions are always going to be there because it's the really only mineral expense mech ever has. But tanks, definitely. He's most likely going to be a tank heavy Terran to start the game off. So Tempest, eliminate the ability for him to just go mass tanks and fuck you over with that.
Okay.
And a Tempest, like if you're going to have less gateway units, which is going to result in having a faster tech path to go to Tempest, it's not that bad against mech because, like you just said, Hellbats, and going heavy gateway emphasis against Hellbats to go mass Zealot versus mass Hellbat, that's not the greatest trade for Zealot. So that's, again, it's appropriate then to go faster tech because that way you can force the Terran to not only not be able to kill you because you have a Tempest, but it forces him to also start diversifying his tech into either Viking or Thor or something else, which is going to make the game last longer. It's going to buy you more time to make more shit too. So yeah, like the Tempest would be great against mech early, like you did here. Like your build right now is actually, I would say, you're like this build right here. If you watch one of my Beta Jam games and you're like, I'm doing Vibes build here and I'm just trying to recreate it, I guarantee you this is from like a mech game, because what you're doing is like appropriate versus mech, but it's not so good versus bio.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense.
Excuse me.
Ooh, bless you.
I gotta sneeze again. Oh, I muted that one though. Oh my god, thank you. But yeah, it's definitely this looks like a versus mech build for sure. So yeah, just more emphasis on your forges, more emphasis on your upgrades, and more emphasis on getting a higher supply faster off of more gateways when you're versing bio, and that would change so much for you about how much control you have. Yo, Candy Vincent, thank you very much for the sub, dude. Much love in a coaching lesson, but I appreciate you, dog. And another thing I would say is, as soon as you get a fully saturated third and you're starting your fourth base, I would love to see you start a Templar Archives, only because you're all like, as soon as you start doing this shit where you're like, okay, I'm not really making stalkers, I'm not building my tech anymore, I'm kind of just in this mode where I just crank units out. The only way you're going to be able to spend your resources properly is if you're cranking out stalkers all day. And we've already discussed earlier how bad stalkers are in mass versus marauders. So you definitely don't want to be cranking stalkers out all day. You want to be making a lot of zealots now. It's like you want to make some stalker to be able to like blink on medevacs and all that shit we talked about earlier, but it's going to be very zealot focused now. And if you're going to be very zealot focused now, your resources are going to have this massive disparity. So if you throw down a Templar Archives around the time when your third base is fully saturated and you start a fourth, it's going to allow you to have the option to either just make Templars for Storm, and you could even go Storm and Disruptor shots at the same time, which is really scary for Terran to deal with if you can kind of manage to control that properly. Or you could just go Archons, literally. And that would be better than just, you know, making Zealots and just having a fat gas bank and then having to wait on more Zealot production. But yeah, Archons are huge here too. Like, they're always going to be a nice addition. And then another thing too, just talking about it further, when you do start your forges, and I think you should be starting your forges when you're starting your third, essentially. That's ideally when I would say is a good time to take it. But as soon as you do go into your forges and you start upgrading, you should already have a good probe amount. We're talking like you should have like 55 probes by the time your forges are done, like 55-ish to maybe even 60-ish, like in that range. Like your third should be well saturated, like mineral line, and You know, like 66 is fully saturated third, so 55 to 60 is almost a fully saturated third. As soon as this happens, you should be investing like all of your chronos into your forges if the game is not about to end because your opponent's all in. So if it's a macro game, you should be chronoing your forges like crazy. The only exception would be if your opponent doesn't have a third and he's like really going crazy on his all-in timing he's going to be doing, and he's just going to like parade push you, and you're like, okay, maybe now I need to chrono boost my robo so I don't die, or I need to chrono a round of gateways because I really need another round of like 10 supply of zealots or something like that. That'd be the only exception. Otherwise, it needs to be your upgrades definitely need to be chronoed, because looking at this game right now, we're at almost 13 minutes, and your Terran opponent is at 1 upgrade for both bio and mech. He has no armor upgrades, but he just has a weapon upgrade on both, and then he's about to have level 2 weapon upgrade in the next minute or so. For you have 1 armor upgrade on your ground, and that's it. And then you're about to have a weapon upgrade on ground and a second armor upgrade on ground coming in about like another 90 seconds or so, roughly. So if we're talking about 13 minutes, I honestly think you could be almost at 2-2 already, or you could be at 2-2 already if you chronoed well instead of 1-0. So and then you could be getting ready to go to 3-3 already. So there's definitely a missed window here. And if you were 2-2 already versus this army he has, your army would trade so much better than otherwise, 0-1 or 1-0.
Yeah, forges, I've never really understood the timing of them.
Yeah.
So hearing to put that down like when I'm doing the third is really helpful.
Yeah, you definitely take that shit when you can. So your third is always going to be the priority, okay? Do not take your forges before your third. But then as soon as you have some spare money after you take your third, take your forges. And then you'll be good to go. And that'll definitely help you a lot with a standard opener. Generally what I do, this is usually what I do, okay? When I go for a robo opener, just to give you a quick overview for like 20 seconds. I will go for a gateway, robo, and another gateway. So I'll be doing all my production off 2 gateways and a robo. I'll go all the way to robo bay, and I'll start making Colossus or Disruptor. And I will not even take my Twilight Council or double forge until I start my third. That's usually what I do. It's a very defensive build, but it's very economical. And then as soon as because I'll usually pair them all together, council and forges at the same time, and I will probably chrono boost like once or twice on the council. If I really think a timing is coming, I'll chrono boost it twice. If I think it's gonna be a bit more of a standard game, I'll chrono boost it usually just once, just to get the first upgrade, like blink stalkers, so I can be really effective at defending drops. And then I'll just go into after I get like 1 or 2 chronos on the council, I'll just go pure chronos at that point, forge. And it'll, like I said before, it'll give you like a 13-minute 2-2 timing, which is fucking huge, because like 2-2 against bio is amazing. It just runs over bio really hard. If you ever have an armor upgrade advantage over bio, it's crazy with zealots. They're like little ultralisks at that point.
Oh, I wish.
Yeah, right.
So a question I had though,
Sure.
which I've always just kind of been curious about.
Yeah.
So I feel like a lot of Terrans will do timings like with bio and tank where they already have their 1-1.
Yeah.
And that's before I have forges.
Yep.
And I don't know if it's like just a mentality I have that I need to fix, but I feel like I'm always at a huge disadvantage when I see that. So I don't know if this is too general or vague a question, but like how big of a difference does, 1 upgrade difference make? You know what I mean?
So it's a bit, and it's always going to happen because what you're doing is you're going for like the robo bay with this kind of a style, because you're going into either Disruptors or Colossus, and the Terran is going for a early engineering bay with maybe a little bit, like a tiny bit of, like basically what the Terran's doing is like making immortals. That's kind of like what he's doing, because he's not going all the way to Thor's, which is what like you're doing when you go to like Colossus. He's just he's making the lower tier factory unit, which happens to be a siege tank, and the fact that you're being out upgraded, you're always going to be out upgraded first by the first upgrade, but that doesn't matter as much because you're playing defensive anyways. Like, what you did was proper with the shield battery. That was great. And then you played defensive around it. You can totally play defensive around it with AoE units as well, like a Disruptor or a Colossus, and you'll be able to thin out that push. The idea is you don't want to take a fight mid-map against his bio if you're a little bit weak, and then have a chance to just get run over. Because as soon as you get to a point where you actually, where he attacks you, you have the defensive advantages where, oh, he's got +1, I have Guardian Shield and Shield Battery. Something like that, where it's like, okay, I can make the difference. I can make a cost-efficient reaction to this where I can still allow myself to go like Colossus, and yet at the same time kind of cancel out his advantage of a +1 weapon upgrade because of this defensive position I have. So that's how you kind of deal with that early. But as soon as you start chrono missing your upgrades, no other race can do that. And a Terran player, it should not ever be like 2-2 at the same time that you are 2-2. You should always be 2-2 before the Terran is, like, every time. Playing this kind of a style. And then that even coincides even further with 3-3. You should always, for sure, be 3-3 before the Terran is 3-3. So you're going to have upgrade windows, advantages. Either you're going to have like minor upgrade window advantages or major upgrade window advantages, depending on what the Terran does. If the Terran does a style where he like goes crazy on like tech units and harasses you, like it'll be major upgrade window advantages because he's delaying his engineering base for so long. But if it's a Terran style where he goes for heavy bio right off the bat and he goes for engineering base pretty early, that'll be more on the minor upgrade advantage category, because it's like it's the difference of like maybe you have like a 30-second window of upgraded lead against him once you're at 2-2, 3-3. Because of chrono, it pushed you ahead. But then he like, it could be like, oh, well, my 2-2 just finished, and 30 seconds later, his is going to finish too. So we're both going to be 2-2, even though I'm going to be closer to 3-3. And then your 3-3 could finish, and maybe you're like 50 seconds ahead. And then it's another little window where he's going to get there soon as well. And unless you capitalize in that little window of time, it's not going to matter as much. Like if you're both the same upgrade, it's the same shit. It's fine. But if you know if the Terran's like, I'm going Liberator harass and Banshee harass and tons of crazy attacks, not getting engineering base early, I'm just doing other shit. I opened up with a battle cruiser. Fuck, who knows? Some people do weird shit. And now suddenly you have like a 2-minute or like a 90-second upgrade window advantage, and you're like, wow, I have a lot of time to work with here. Where I'm 1-1, 2-2, and he's always the upgrade lower than I am, or even more than that. There's a chance. Some like, this is really rare. It did happen sometimes though to me, where the Terran player is just so fucking overly invested in aggression with high tech shit, and you'll have situations where you're like 2-2 and they're still 0-0, and that's just kind of like an auto A move win if they're starting to go bio now, because you're just like, well, your Marines do nothing at this point and you just die.
Yeah, I feel like I'm fairly good against like really aggressive people that try to harass a lot, but it's timings, like early game timings like this, where like I just struggle because I don't know like really, I guess, what units to make. As silly as that might sound.
Sure.
Because like I'm always trying to figure out what unit like hard counters another unit.
Well,
you know what I mean?
Yeah, just to make it really easy for yourself, you could do the same thing every game, and it could be literally this. Every single game, just say, okay, every single time I'm going to make up to 10 stalkers. It could be anywhere in the range of like 6 to 10. 6 is definitely the minimum. Do not go lower than 6. And 10, I would say, is the maximum. Don't really go above 10 because it's going to be too much gas invested into it for that point in the game. And then, so you'll choose between 6 and 10. 10 is definitely the safest, I would say. For like ultra defensive purposes, because you're not rushing blink here. So we'll just say 10 stalkers, okay? We'll say you make 10 stalkers, and then you just make zealots. So it's going to be stalker, sentry, stalker, 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 all the way to 10, and then just zealots. And the robo unit is going to be Colossus if not tank, Disruptor if tank, and that's it. That's all you do every single fucking game. And then you can go.
Thanks. Yeah, I have that note of, I said 8 to 10 stalkers, and I actually, one of the other replays which we don't have to go through is basically the same like push and timing, but it was on sim, and it was a different Terran who they had 2 liberator, so instead of like 3 tanks, they had 1 tank and 2 liberators.
Yeah. And
I feel like that just like completely messed me up because I didn't know, and that person also like was better about kiting their bio.
Yeah.
And I had no idea how to break that.
So I'm glad you said that, because that is a unique situation right there. And if you're gonna try and break tanks with you're gonna try and break some tanks with you know, like stalkers basically. A great way to do that is gonna be to maybe warp in like one zealot, just like one zealot, and you're like, hey zealot, run at the tank first, because a zealot is gonna take way more hits to die than a stalker will. A zealot is gonna take 6 hits to die from a siege tank, or no, 5. Just kidding. Is it 5? Hold on. It's 150. How many times is 35 going to 150? Or is it 40? It's 40. Just kidding. Oh my god, these numbers.
You are asking the wrong guy.
It's 4 hits. It takes 4 hits for a zealot to die. Or no. Yes. No. Yes. It's 4 hits. Sorry. Okay, we're good. It's 4 hits. I'm like thinking about different patches of damage numbers of a tank. It's 4 hits.
Okay.
So yeah, 4 hits for a zealot to die. It only takes 3 hits for a stalker to die. And the thing about a stalker is if a stalker gets hit by a tank twice, it's going to be like deep red health, and it's going to easily just be like, oh, Marines are shooting me, or Marauders are shooting me. It's going to like instantly die after it gets hit twice by a tank. So definitely a tank beats the shit out of a stalker way harder than it beats the shit out of a zealot. So even though stalkers are better in that situation overall, you want to have more stalkers than zealots, especially if you don't have charge at that point. Which you should.
At that point, I went Robo into Disruptor. So I had like, I think I had 1 or 2 Disruptors by the time he pushed. And I had a third, and he pushed the third, and I tried to. He had both like his tank, basically on the ramp, and I tried to pop it with the 2 Disruptors.
Yeah.
But like they barely missed, and then kind of like you said, he then just like stemmed and like rolled me over because I just didn't have anything.
Yeah. So in that situation, it's you definitely want to try to hit something you can with the disruptor if you can. If you're able to be patient a little bit about it, like for instance, if you can get in front of his army before he gets to your nexus, that's always ideal. Like you're between your nexus and his army, so you're not like way in the middle of the map, but at the same time you're forcing him to siege before he starts sieging your nexus. So you slow his push down to where he has to like play really safe and cautious and leapfrog. In the process of when he's leapfrogging, that's like the opportune time to hit him with disruptor shots. Especially if you catch a tank that's like moving forward and it starts sieging and you're like, oh cool, I'll blow that up now. Like that's great. That's perfect. That's a perfect way to fuck over a leapfrogging Terran. And sometimes they'll move their bio forward a little bit to where they're going to guard the tank as it tries to siege. Great timing to blow up a bio ball with a disruptor shot. Something like that. But in general, if it's an army that's like really light on the bio and really heavy on the tank and liberator, we're talking like, let's say he has like 7 Marines with no stem yet, and he's got 3 tanks and a liberator. That's a great time to be like, okay, let's warp in like 1 zealot, so I can walk forward with that zealot right as I also walk forward with my stalkers, and I can focus fire his important units with my stalkers while my zealot buys time for that to happen. Because it's the difference of like, let's just say you have 7 stalkers and a zealot, or 8 stalkers, and your goal is to kill the liberator. You could actually send a zealot forward, focus fire the liberator with 7 stalkers, and then back up and lose no stalkers, because the zealot takes all the tank shots and then the zealot dies, and then you kill the liberator in that same amount of time and you back off, and then you wait for another round to do it again, and then maybe kill the tank the next time. And that's what would happen there.
Okay.
But if you actually, if you had only 8 stalkers and you went for the same goal, I'm going to kill that liberator, and you ran into like 3 tanks and a liberator, you would most likely lose like probably 5 stalkers to that or something. Like you would still probably kill the liberator, but you would lose like more than half your stalkers there, because the tanks would not only be shooting your stalkers that hit him really hard, but they would be splashing. And if you have 2 tanks splashing 2 stalkers, and those stalkers are side by side, earlier I said a tank will kill a stalker in 3 hits. At that point, it takes 2 hits to kill a stalker, because it's all, you're incorporating now splash damage as well. All the stalkers, which now only takes 2 hits instead, because that barely living stalker that would have been deep red now just would die otherwise. So it's definitely that's like the only situation where making another zealot early before you have your 10 stalkers or something is going to be appropriate. Otherwise, just go stalker only and 1 sentry to 10 and then make all zealot.
Okay. Gotcha.
And I'm gonna pause it one more time. We're gonna talk about this. We've talked a lot about your build and shit like that, and a little bit about why things are happening. But I want you to tell me right now. We're gonna talk about micro. How do you think is the most appropriate way to take a fight against this army?
I would think because of the ghosts spread out, and maybe just kind of pincer him from both sides. I I would think, but
Okay.
I could.
It's like I'm glad. I want to quiz you a little bit because I just want to get your brain like actively thinking about what's going on here. And I would say the idea of what you just had would be great if there were no Hellbats mixed in this army. Like if it was anything else, if it was more tanks, if it was, you know, Widow Mines even, if it was just more bio, like that would be fine. Like a pincer move, get, you know, more of your army on top of his army faster, stuff like that, it would be fine. But because of what you have and because of what he has, I would say the best way to take this fight would be actually to wait on engaging with your gateway units a little bit because he only has 2 tanks. So you're not going to be getting like sieged like crazy, essentially. And also, you saw his army engage you before this fight started because of your Oracle. So you got to read a little bit about what was there. But just using your Disruptors, and you even see him with Observer and your Revelation. You totally see everything. So you have enough time to like look at this and be like, okay, cool, yeah, I see what's going on here. The fact that he has so many Hellbats, you do not want to engage this right away. And then also one thing that Hellbats suck ass against are Disruptors. So your army, your best thing you have right now is Disruptor. And if you just try to take a few Disruptor shots before you really take a fight, that's how you're going to win this fight really, really hard. But if you engage this fight, like with all your gateway units either as or before Disruptors start to shoot, there's a very high chance you're going to lose this fight. Because you have the...
I'm pretty sure I do.
Yeah, you have the potential to eliminate so much of his DPS before the fight even has to start, and there's no way he can punish you for that. But his DPS is actually insane against your gateway army. So like right there, we're going to stop it for a second, and we're going to look at how many zealots are left. You have 7, and in this fight currently, I think you have 2 somewhere else. Hold on. Oh, you have a zealot scout.
One standing in a corner and just one of my natural.
Yeah, okay. So that's fine. I don't mind that those zealots are there like that. That's not a big deal. But my point is you've already bled out all of your zealots before the disruptor shots have even really connected. So, but you're like, you still can shoot disruptor shots either way. Like the zealots didn't have to do that for the disruptor shots to shoot off. Like you could actually look like you're going to engage him and you could just back up, and as you back up and he chases, you can shoot disruptor shots out and you would get the same outcome, or you could just poke with your disruptors and you would get the same outcome.
Okay.
Because if those zealots engaged after you just chunked his fucking army, think about the Terran having like a block of cheese, and your disruptor shots turn it into Swiss cheese. You just fucking create holes in it, and you're like, okay, now let's fight that, because it's way weaker than it was before. And like, look at those disruptor shots. You actually just wiped out, I would say, a fucking fat chunk of that army right there. That was good. Those were good shots. You keep having good shots this game, but it's
like this part now. Like now, I just kind of don't really, like basically after I did that, I should have just like backed away.
You should have, yes.
Okay.
Because the only reason why it would make sense to engage now after you chunked his army out like that is if you now had zealots to engage with. Because if you put yourself in a situation where you're engaging with pure stalker versus a bio line that has marauders inside of it, for you though, the one thing that I say is going for you is he only has 3 marauders, but he also does have 2 tanks, unfortunately. So like the low marauder count gets kind of supplemented with the tank count, but your stalkers bleed out so fucking fast when they actually have to tank the damage against units like tanks and marauders. So zealots would tank that all day. They'd be like, oh, we don't take any damage. We're gonna just kill everything before we really lose anything. So yeah, definitely backing off right now would be the best call for you. Make another round of zealots and then go again. Yeah, look how fast your stalkers die. It's crazy. And if this happens, What sucks is it puts you in a situation where now, if you look at production, I guarantee you'll make another round of stalkers at some point, and you don't want to be doing that. You ideally want to make stalkers and just maintain them all game, not remake them all game. Because the less you have to remake them, the more zealots and the more Archon you can make, which are just better. At better ways to spend your money, basically. Like, stalkers are good.
Gotcha.
Stalkers are good, but it's so, like, it's basically like, they're so good as long, because they're so easy to keep alive as well, because you could just blink away or something like that. But the more stalkers you make, the more stalkers you keep having to remake, the less power you're going to have in your army, because it's just using up your gateway cycles on stalkers again when it could have been Zealot and Archon. Zealot and Archon's so fucking good compared. And the more of them you can have in the game, the better.
Yeah, so this was a moment where after I had that fight, I was like, oh, I got really good disruptor hits. Like, okay, I can win this fight. And then my whole army just melted.
Yep.
And I just can't remember thinking this game, like, where did my army go? Like, I thought I wiped all the stuff out, but then, you know, surprise.
Yeah, no, it just goes to show you how fast stalkers die to marauders and tanks. It's actually insane. Like, I'm not even kidding, dude. Let me give you some supply numbers. I hope this makes sense in how drastic this is. If you have stalkers with blink, when bio does not have stim pack, when bio does not have combat shield, no concussive shells, not a lot of medevacs, we're talking like maybe 1 or 2 medevacs max. Stalkers are good then. They're not bad. It's really easy to make positive trades there. So you could have like 20 supply of stalker, and they could trade well versus 20 supply of bio in that regard. But as soon as you have all the upgrades for bio done, like combat shield, stim pack, and concussive shell, that alone makes bio way better against stalker. And just that alone, just because you just have the raw tech lab upgrades for bio, I would say you need to already now have like a supply advantage over Terran to be able to take it like a good trade. So we're talking like if there was like, now let's say we're talking 20 supply of bio again. For an equal trade there, you would need to have like 30 supply of stalker. Just raw default tech labs with a low supply of Terran. But now the bigger the medevac count gets, and the bigger the marauder count gets, and marine, the crazier it gets for you. And if we're talking the Terran is at like 100 supply, you don't need to be at like a 10 supply advantage of that, where it's like 110 for you with just stalker. You need to honestly be at like 150 supply or like 140 supply for that to be good for you now. Like, you need to have like a good fucking amount over him at that point, because the cost efficiency of medevacs healing a concave is crazy, and you're gonna concave in that situation. Like, you're not gonna focus fire. And the cost efficiency of how fast marauders can just fucking pound stalkers out is crazy. So you're gonna need to you would need to have enough stalkers to be able to blink repeatedly over and over and over. There's like tons of blinking going on where you're saving so many stalkers, and you need to have insane micro to be able to save all your stalkers. But you would need to have enough stalkers to blink so much that you have enough shots going into him, but you're still able to concave out to where you can save so many of your stalkers and at the same time whittle his army down. So you seriously would need like 150 supply versus like 100 if we're talking just stalker versus marine marauder medevac. And then if we incorporate,
that makes sense.
Yeah, and if we incorporate tanks into that as well, now it's not 150 more. Now you would need like 170, like even more, because now you're incorporating tank shots as well, which would also mean you would need to have even more crazy micro too on top of that. Because if you don't micro your stalkers like that, what's going to happen is like basically at that point the DPS of Terran is so fucking high that he looks at a stalker, it dies. He looks at a stalker, it fucking dies. It's just everything he looks at dies unless you blink it the second it takes damage, every single time. So and again, the whole point here is we're not saying go mass stalker. We're saying make like 10 and stop, because it's support. And that fight where you just got fucking destroyed, you had I think 14. You had like almost 2 full rows from what I saw. So your stalkers were like, as soon as they started being the ones that were getting targeted because all your zealots bled out, it was just like, look at stalkers and they're fucking dead. And that's what's going to happen every time, because you have to like stalkers are just paper against this, and it's like he's just gonna fucking destroy you in seconds.
Yeah, I'm learning that
Yeah.
painfully
Yeah.
each game.
So definitely always never try to take a fight against heavy anti-armored units for Terran, like Marauders and tanks, unless you have Zealots still there.
Okay, makes sense.
Yeah, that's huge for sure. And if you have Zealots, sorry, I'm gonna say this one last thing. If you actually have Zealots there too, all those numbers where I said where it's like you need to have 150 versus 100, 170 versus 100, that doesn't apply if you have Zealots there. Zealots are actually the complete opposite against Marauder and tank. Then that's when the Terran's like, oh fuck, I'm against Zealots and I have Marauder tank. This sucks for me. It's like it's the exact opposite. So like now it's when the Terran would need more supply than you, because you have a well geared army towards what he has. It's just that he had a bunch of Hellbats when your Zealots died, which is bad for you again. It's like counter units, basically.
Okay.
Yeah. What were you going to say?
I was just gonna say the rest of this game probably goes as you would expect it. Like he just kind of slowly kills me. Like I never really get my economy back.
Sure.
He eventually makes like I think 1 or 2 like BCs, and then I was like, all right, I'm
Okay. So I have an idea then, because you're definitely at a massive disadvantage right now, and I would say playing from a disadvantage, talking about it sometimes can give you ideas and mindset about how to play in that spot, but it's never a good idea to prepare to be at a disadvantage. So the fact that you're already here, I would say the bigger thing to talk about is things to prevent yourself from getting to this place in the first place, which we like you're kind of insinuating we've already kind of discussed, and now the rest of the game is kind of just like a it's just going to be like a mess. You're already kind of fucked. So if you want to, what I would like to do for you is I would like to create to go into another game, and I would like to actually create a build for you that I think versus Terran you could use literally every game, and the only trade-off would be if it's a tank push you go Disruptor, if it's a bio push you go Colossus, and then you could even go back into Disruptor again later if you want to.
Sure. How do you want to do that then?
Okay, so and the reason why I want to do that for you is because it'll make sure you like have a reference to be like, oh cool, I know when to take my forges. What did he say again about that? Like it's just something you can compare to, and it's like you can also then compare timers to your own games rather than just shit that I say where it's like when you take your third, but what if your third's late and you don't realize, or something like that. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna invite you to a party, and then I'll make the game, and I'll make you a ref so you can have an example game. And what I'm gonna do this game, and also feel free, again, this is that moment too where I would say you should ask any questions you have, even if they're not related to what I'm currently doing. Whoops. Like, if they're just vague questions that maybe we didn't cover and you want to talk about it, feel free to ask. But yeah, this is your time to ask questions, and I'll make this build for you at the same time. And yeah, we'll.
I really appreciate that.
Yeah, no problem, dude. And if you don't have any questions either, I can just walk you through this as well. It's all good, just to make sure.
I was gonna say, while the game is kind of getting under, something I did want to ask about is. I mean, I feel like PvP is pretty gimmicky, and not to change positions here too quick, but
sure.
In PvP, if the other player goes Phoenix, like I'm saying, like 4 or 5 Phoenix doesn't fully commit to it.
Yeah.
What do you do? Like, how do you really counter that? Because I feel like every game is just they go a few Phoenix, they slowly just chip away at my economy, and then they have like way too big of an army, and I just really have like stalkers.
You punish it with either Blink Stalker, or you punish it by taking a faster third than normal, like a greedy one, and then you just focus all chronos on probes. So you accept losses, and you just keep making probes, and then that kind of a style supplements more of a Charge the Archon Immortal style. So 2-base Blink Stalker, you punish the Phoenix, or you punish his fact that you punish his economy by the fact that he's gonna have less than you, even though he's killing probes, because you just outmake him because he can't punish a third.
So just take like an early third, you're saying?
If you want to go for Charge the Archon Immortal, take an early third. If you want to go for blink stalkers, then you need to like build some pylons around your base and like punish his Phoenix every time he tries to punish probes.
Okay.
So yeah, it just depends what style your goal is, basically. Alright, and I actually, I went up to 21 probes this game too, like I told you not to. So, yeah, don't do that. Definitely make that core
I didn't
first.
want to say anything.
Yeah, I was kind of not paying attention.
No, you're good. I mean, you still have everything,
Yeah.
you know, faster and more efficiently than I did.
The big one for you was your second gas, for sure. Like, your gas was so late on your second one. And now you should be able to make Warp Gate and Stalker, like I was saying, like right as the core finishes.
So after you go Stalker and then Sentry out of your gateway, do you just like make another Stalker, or do you just kind of wait?
Yeah, I just go back to the Stalkers. Yep, that's it. I will make them pretty often too. Like I won't pause my gateway for very long. So like right now, I should have enough gas because of how early we took it that I can now make my Robo my second gate.
Okay.
And then, yeah, we're just making probes. We can still chrono probes here at this point, and we're still going to make stalkers. Because we should have enough resources to afford it. And we're really doing an emphasis on chronoing probes hardcore here. So we can, you know, maximize resources for the natural too. And this is that point when you would be like, okay, I'm getting around like 12 probes. If you went council first, this is when you would want to take your third. If you went Robo first like we're doing, this is when you're going to want to take your gas at your natural around 12. And then keep chrono boosting your probes.
And the reason for the slower third is you're investing more in gas, right?
It's because you're taking the gas, yep.
Yeah. Robo Bay?
Yeah, exactly. If you're going to go Robo Bay, you take a gas more quickly at your natural, which is going to definitely slow down your pacing of your money. Because you're going to have to sacrifice some of your resources now for gas.
Okay.
And now we have double warp gate. We can send like a hallucinated Phoenix to his base. And then we'll be taking our third like now though. Like right around the time when you start your Colossus is around the time you also want to take your third with this playstyle. So,
okay.
But your production takes priority though, because like you could totally get hit by. You're almost always going to get hit by timings from Terran, so you definitely don't want to be like, I'm just going to wait on the Colossus for a while. Like the second you can make one, you start it and you chrono boost it, and then you start your third. Okay. So your third should be going down around like 4:45. And then you can start your upgrade for your Colossus. And again, I would say at this point now, chrono boosting Colossus is now the priority. So now there could be a little bit of hiccups in your gateways. Colossus should be, up until you have like 2, you should definitely prioritize them. And now you can go back into making stalkers until we have about 10. We have 8 right now. Now we have 9. And
so let's say that you had, you know, this was a real game and you scouted and you saw they were going to tank push. Would you still have gone one Colossi into Disruptor, or would you gone the Disruptor?
If it's ever tank, you always focus Disruptor. If it's tank, Disruptor. If it's anything besides tank and you want to go Disruptor, you always make a Colossus first and then go, like 1 or 2 Colossus first and then go into Disruptor. You always need to make Colossus first if it's not tank. But if it is tank, you can get away with not making a tank.
Okay.
And then now, like right about now, you know, our third's coming up. We have a decent economy on our natural we can transfer over. And our Colossus upgrades have been started. The Colossus have been produced. This is when you want to take your double forge council.
Okay.
And you can rotate your probes now to your third base. And
do they usually kind of come in a pair, like forge and council?
Like
if you go Robo first, you usually want to get them at the same time, or is that just...
I like it this way because you can't really afford the upgrades before this, but now you want to get all these upgrades as fast as you can after you can afford this, which is why I get all of them at the same time. Because ideally, like, the council being super efficient would be like, oh, the forges are ready for 2-2. Let's get our council. But you also really need blink as well. Like, it's really important to get your blink upgrade early, because otherwise you're going to be dealing with drops in a much more annoying way for a lot longer.
Okay.
Oops, I made 2 more stalkers. That is a mistake. We should have stopped. We're making only zealots at this point. That's what we should be doing. But yeah.
Yeah, I think you have 12 right now.
Yeah, I have a little bit more than I should. I have 12. I should have stopped for 2 ago. I just warped in that last round of 2. But it's whatever. And we'll go up to about like 4 Colossus and stop. And then now we're also going to be taking our Templar archives, because as I was saying before, around the time when your 3rd's fully saturated and you want to take your 4th, that's around the time when you should take your Templar archives. It makes a lot of sense to take it right around then. And we're not chrono boosting our nexuses anymore. We're only chrono boosting our forges at this point, because we're looking for that. Like, remember how I said at 13 minutes you could be 2-2 and you were 1-0 almost? Like, you were like almost 1-1.
Okay.
Pylon is finishing right now. And now we have more probes heading over to our new base. We're going to keep making probes until, like, you know, we go to 80 or so. Okay, and now we can go back into making maybe, like, if you're not going to go Disruptor, which you don't have to, if you want to go to 4 Colossus and call it a day for now, I would say that's a good number to stop at. Like, if you're just gonna go Colossus, if you're gonna go Disruptor, like 4 or 5 as well is fine. But you could actually as well, like, make maybe like 2 more observers at this point. I'm gonna do that. I'm gonna make 4 Colossus, like 2 observer again, and then I'm gonna go into back into Disruptors. So, like, we're gonna have a couple of observers on the map that are just chilling. Basically, that's the point.
Okay.
And our worker count is looking pretty fat right now. And I obviously know that our timings would be a little off if we got attacked by a Terran. You might lose some shit and have to rebuild some shit, which is totally understandable. But yeah, ideally if it's like mostly a macro game and you're able to shut shit down, this is what your goals should kind of be. And you can see now that our resources are having massive disparities, which is why we just now got our archives ready to go, and we're ready to also now switch into Archons, which is going to be fucking huge.
Okay.
And then now as well, we can throw down, like you did in your game, a cannon at each mineral line. And make our Archons. Or you could just save them for Templar, for Storm. Either way works. But we're actually...
I feel like...
Or go ahead.
I was going to say, I feel like for me, I'm not as good about controlling my Templar with Storm.
Okay.
Like, not that I can't do it, but if my opponent goes Ghost, I feel like I just always lose my Templar. Like, I get the worst EMPs or something.
Sure. Yeah, you have to spread them out like this, like right here. Just you have to like make sure they're always not stacked. So I understand. You could literally, for now, until you get more comfortable with that later on, just go Archons every time, and that's totally fine. Just Archons and Disruptors, or Archons and Colossus. And you can see 10 minutes we're 2-2. 13 minutes in your game, you were still 1-0. Actually, it's even
that
faster.
That sounds so bad when you say it.
Yeah. Like
Remember that game where you were only 0-1 at 13 minutes, and I'm now 2-2.
You could definitely, like, if you just prioritize it, you could definitely get there a lot faster for sure. And now that we're maxed out, we just created like a lot more gateways. You definitely should be doing this kind of shit in your games if you're not already. Like, not going up to like 8 gateways and stopping should never be like a thing. You should be going up to like we're talking seriously like 14 to like 18 gateways if you're going for a ground style, which is what you're doing, because you're not going mass sky toss yet. Like, that's something that could happen later. And just because I know that's something you do, that you've talked about earlier at the start of this lesson, let's assume we were going to switch into sky toss. When you max out the first time, and this is around the time when you're going to take your 5th base, ideally, or 4th, like, you're going to have a good economy already, and you're able to max out. This is when I would say you could throw down your Stargate, and you can start getting weapon upgrades on your cyber core as well. And you can now you can start getting ready to, once your forges are done with chronos, you can start chronoing nothing but your cyber core, and you can make 5 stargates. Okay. So you make 1 stargate, and then when it's done, you make 4 more and a fleet beacon, and you can go into sky toss off of your existing what's it called, gateway robo army. Because this way you can lose your army, rebuild it, lose your army, rebuild it, lose your army, rebuild it, and then slowly switch into sky toss, and eventually you've switched into full sky toss without taking the risk of just going, hold on, I'm gonna just stop making units and go full sky toss now, and then not have map control for a while.
Yeah, I went through a phase, it was probably maybe a month or so ago, where I was having a lot of success with early Phoenix against Terran.
Yeah.
Is that like just, I don't want to say is that a bad idea?
It's not bad, but it's definitely I would say a little more advanced. The reason why is because if your Phoenix are not being crazy efficient, it's not going to be worth it. You have to be able to be really efficient with your Phoenix for that to be worth it, and also at the same time not slow down your own build. So it's definitely go ahead.
I was gonna say, and again, it's kind of a vague question, but is there a point where if you go early Phoenix, you kind of realize like, oh, like I've done enough to justify like doing this, like, oh, after I've killed like 8 workers, okay, now like does that even make sense?
Yeah, it depends on, every game is going to be different because it depends on how much control you have. And I would say the best case scenario is going to be you have put the Terran in a situation where they feel like they're being turtled and they have to be defensive. Like, for instance, you might not even kill anything. You might kill like 1 SCV, but you forced out like 8 turrets or something because he's like, I have nothing to defend this, and this Protoss is camping my production. I need turrets everywhere. That's amazing. You're like, wow, I'm in a great spot. But let's just say, you don't force buildings, but you do kill a lot of Marine Marauder and a couple medevacs. That's also really good. Those things are like obvious, but if you don't kill anything, it's a little bit more of a question mark. But it could be one of those things where it's like, what if you delay his third really long? That could be really good because you're on a third base and he's not, so you're definitely gaining little bits of leads there because you're keeping him more contained for longer. Mm-hmm. Stuff like that could be ways to read if you're getting an advantage or not. The best way to read that you're not getting an advantage is that the Terran is not slowing down at all. Like he's taking his expansions when he wants to. He's always got his Marines or Widow Mines or something in position where you're like, fuck, I can't really punish that. Stuff like that would be ways you could read it where you're like, okay, not ideal for me. I opened up Phoenix and I'm not really punishing him for anything. Yeah. So
yeah, I feel like I try to do something like that more against like a Zerg to slow that down, like maybe going a few adepts. But like I recently just stopped kind of doing that because I felt I was maybe getting like 2 or 3 drone kills for like 2 adepts, which I think is pretty bad. So I was just like, I'd rather just make like 1 adept, use that as a scout, and then just kind of send it home and at least have an idea.
That's all. You're always going to get scouting out of harass like that. That's always definitely a thing that's going to happen. But another thing that's going to happen is what you force. Like if whatever you kill is nice, but whatever you force out of them is it's almost like indirect killing. Because if you force things that are making your opponent be more defensive and less economical, that's almost the same thing as killing workers, almost. So it's against Zerg if you're like, I have adepts in your base and you just made 8 roaches when you really only needed to have like 4. And now you have less drones, and more money was wasted that you did. Like, now you're gonna have roaches just sitting there defensive. That's always a good feeling. Mm-hmm. And like the turrets thing I talked about, like the turrets aren't scary to you at all right now because they're defensive static these structures. But Terrans might do that against Protoss. If they're like, fuck, I'm gonna die. I have nothing to respond to this right now. I need turrets. Shit like that. Like it's. But again, end of the day, the best way to talk about Phoenix is the more damage you deal, the better. So it's really like there is always going to be a threshold where it kind of like starts becoming worth it, but it's really an experience thing. I can't really describe that because every game is different and you have to know how to read the game more or less. Because there's so many different things that could happen.
Yeah, totally. I mean, this game is kind of an onion, right? There's so many layers to it, but
yeah, because like it's just like factors of like indirect damage, there's direct damage, there's you're delaying your opponent's build in certain ways. Like so many things that could happen that could make it worth it or not worth it. And it also depends on your build. What if you, for instance, do a little bit of damage to your opponent, but you do a lot of damage to yourself because you're so fucking tunnel visioned on like not flying over a Widow Mine for like 40 seconds. And it's like that wasn't worth it now.
Yeah, I feel like that happens to me a lot where I'll make some kind of harassment units and I'm flying around and I just completely forget to like macro or...
That's why it's advanced for sure.
You know, I'm like, oh, yeah, I don't think I'm quite there yet, so that's why I kind of pulled myself back from that. And I was like, okay, you know, let me play a little bit safer and get a little bit better mechanically before, you know, I try to take that next step.
Yeah, I agree. I think you should too. Yeah, fuck yeah, dude. Any other questions?
No, I mean, honestly, you've, you know, answered a whole lot. I have a whole page here of notes. So, no, I really appreciate it. You know, I'll let you get back to the stream.
All right, man. All right, I would say last thing, make sure you save that replay, just so you don't lose it, and use that as a reference for timers, because I know I said this before, and I actually underquoted it in the game we were watching of yours, but when you were at almost 13 minutes, 1-0, one armor upgrade, and that was it, we actually hit 3-3. So that's fucking humongous, right? You're like, oh my god. Like, imagine if you were 3-3 against the Terran, who was also 1-0 in that game.
I mean, I'd feel pretty good.
Yeah, right? All right, man. Thank you again. Just thank you again for being really patient as well about all the complications from earlier today.
No problem.
But
it happens.
Yeah, much love, man. And feel free to ask more questions in chat. And thanks for doing a coaching lesson, dude.
Of course. No, thank you.
Yeah.
So,
and
all right. Thanks.
I'll send you the VOD by tomorrow as well in Discord.
Okay. Yeah, that'd be great. Thank you.
All right. Take it easy, man.
Yep, you too.
All right. See ya. All right, guys. That has been a coaching lesson with me and Mr. Ben the Protoss. So, if you guys liked it, just know I have a ton more videos just like this. I have Terran, Protoss, and Zerg videos. I have coaching for every race. I would say I definitely have mostly Zerg. And if you're someone who really wants a lot of information, I have a series called Bronze to GM series. I highly encourage you to go check that out as well if you're looking to learn StarCraft. I guarantee that'll help you out in pretty much almost any league you're in. It'll probably, the lower league you are, the more it'll probably reinvent how you just think about StarCraft as a whole. So go check those out if you're interested. But much love. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Until then, peace.